You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
Good evening, everyone. This is the meeting of the Branford Planning and Zoning Commission. It is Thursday, July 10th, 2025. I have 7 p.m. We will start by introducing members of our commission and staff, starting with Commission Member Joe Chadwick. Joe Chadwick, are you here?
Joe Chadwick is present.
Thank you, Joe. Fred Russo, Commission Member Fred Russo, are you here?
Fred Russo present.
Thank you, Fred. Joe Viuzzo, Commission Member, are you here?
Joe Viuzzo is present.
Thank you, Joe. Marcy Pelusi. Marcy, are you here?
Yes, I am here.
Thank you, Marcy. Sharon Hutner. Sharon, are you here?
Sharon Hutner is here.
Thank you, Sharon. Dave Dyer. Dave, are you here?
Dave Dyer is here.
Thank you, Dave. And our staff this evening is our town planner, McKeel Wackers. McKeel, you're here?
I'm here.
And our clerk recording secretary in the background is Michelle Martin. I am Chuck Anders' chair, and we'll start by asking our secretary, Fred Russo, to read the notice of public hearing.
The Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Branford, Connecticut hereby gives notice of the public hearings to be held on Thursday, July 10th, 2025 at 7 p.m. by remote technology to consider the applications listed below. Information regarding how to participate in the public hearings will be provided on the Commission's meeting agenda that will be posted on the town's website at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. Application 25-10-3. Lot re-subdivision located at 19-37 Gould Lane, 5 Beechwood LLC, in care of Warren Field, applicant and owner. Application number 25-4.3, zoning map amendment, IHOD, located at 642 Main Street to construct a building containing 3 apartment units. Zoning map amendment revision, IHOD, to remove the property located at 642 Main Street from the Main Street Overlay District. Attorney Timothy J. Lee, applicant, 642 in Street LLC, in care of Costas Sosulis, owner. Application number 25-4.4, special exceptions to construct a building containing 3 apartment units located at 642 Main Street. Attorney Timothy J. Lee, applicant, 642 Main Street LLC, in care of Costas Sosulis, owner. Application 25-6.1, special exception for the creation of a new interior lot, Lot 2, located at 200 Damascus Road, 200 Damascus LLC, in care of Sal Maritoli, applicant and owner. At said hearings, all persons will have the right to be heard. Copies are on file in the Planning and Zoning Commission's office at the Planning and Zoning Department, 1019 Main Street, Branford, Connecticut, 06405. Written communications may be sent to the above address or to planning and zoning at branford-ct.gov. Planning and Zoning Commission, C. Andres, chairperson.
Chuck Anders, chair. Thank you, Fred. We'll follow our normal format for public hearings, which is the applicant goes first, makes its presentation, including comments from any consultants. After the presentation is made, we turn it over to the commission and staff. Typically start with a summary of staff comments from the staff report from our town planner. And then we open up to questions and comments from commission members for the applicant. At that point, we open up the public portion of the public hearing, and I'll ask McKeel to go through the process shortly about how to participate, what you can raise your hand and so forth. We ask that when you participate, you state your name and address for the record, make your comments. And then when the public portion is done, we allow the applicant to respond to any public comments. We maybe have some further questions and comments from commission members and staff, and we may or may not close the public hearing. It's not unusual to have a public hearing extend over several meetings for additional information and so forth. So with that, McKeel, can you just go through the process for participating in this Zoom meeting when we get to that point?
Yeah. So to participate, if you want to speak, if you're using a computer with a microphone, you can click raise your hand in the participant window. If you're calling in by phone, you press *9 to raise your hand, and dial information is listed on the agenda. If you don't wish to speak, you may submit comments using the chat feature. We will monitor the chat the best we can, but speaking is preferred. If you're viewing only, you are not required to use your real name and a pseudonym is acceptable if you are not speaking. Reminder, if you wish to speak, you must provide your name as required by Public Act 22-3. And all details are available on the agenda. I've pasted these instructions in the chat window and put a link to the agenda in the chat window as well.
Chuck Anders, Chair. Thank you, McKeel. Okay, we'll start with our public hearings. Our items number 1, 2, and 3 all are the same property. That is 642 Main Street. The applications are a zoning map amendment to change it from, I believe, R1 to IHOD, another zoning map amendment to remove the property from the Main Street Overlay District, and a special exception to construct a building containing 3 apartment units. I believe we started at least one of these public hearings back in our June 5th meeting. And so with that, is the applicant ready to proceed?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
You can proceed.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Timothy Lee. I have an address of 107 Monowee Street in Branford. I represent the applicant, who is 642 Main Street. The principal of 642 Main Street is Costas Sousalis. As the chair mentioned, we did make an initial presentation at your June meeting. We had asked for a clarification regarding some of the zoning issues with regard to this property. Based on that conversation, we had submitted another application that's before you tonight, and I'll go through that with you in a minute. Although there are 3 applications, the project itself is relatively simple, and it's what we had discussed at the June 3rd meeting. But by way of background, because it's been a month or so, my client owns a property at 642 Main Street. The property is currently improved with a 2-family house, which was constructed in 1880. Property is located in the BR zoning district. It's 3.4 acres or 0.34 acres in size. Property is also located within the Main Street overlay zone and the town village district. My client's interested in constructing 3 new dwelling units in the rear of the property. The dwelling units will be located on the first floor of the new building. Due to the proximity to town and access to Route 1, we think this property would be an ideal location for an IHOD zone. As we had proceeded through the zoning process and for the development of the property, we came across a hurdle. The Main Street overlay zone does not allow residential dwellings on the first floor. As we discussed at the June meeting, we believe that the IHOD zone would supersede the Main Street overlay zone with respect to that requirement. However, I was not able to convince McKeel of that. So what we had done is we have now submitted a 3rd application. The 3rd application is a map amendment to remove the property from the Main Street overlay zone. So we have 3 applications before you this evening, but all 3 applications are designed to achieve the same purpose, and that's to allow the development of 3 residential dwelling units in the rear of the property. So just to summarize, first application is a zoning map amendment to remove the property from the Main Street overlay zone. If the commission grants that application, that would relieve us of the requirement, or the prohibition, I should say, of having residential structures on the ground level. Second application is a zoning map amendment to create the IHOD zone for the property. If that gets approved, we'd be allowed to proceed with the development of the 3 apartment units in the rear of the property. And finally, we have a special exception, which would actually allow us to construct the 3 apartment units under the IHOD zone. Because it's an IHOD zone, we are required to have a component of affordability in the unit. One of the units will be deed restricted and only be able to be leased to a tenant making 80% of the median income. That is the requirement for the IHOD zone. I'd also point out that since we were here at the June meeting, we did go back to the Town Center Revitalization Review Board on June 11th of 2025. The applicant received approval for the development from the Town Center Review Board at that meeting. At the review board meeting, the applicant also committed to making certain improvements to the main house in conjunction with the development of the rear of the property. In essence, he's going to, when he's improving the rear of the property, he's also going to make some improvements to the front of the property. And we had discussed the nature of those improvements with the review board when we were there at the June meeting. So that procedurally is why we're here tonight. It's why there are 3 applications, but all 3 applications are really just designed to allow us to develop the 3 apartment units in the rear of the property. If the commission has any questions for me, I'd be happy to try to answer them. Otherwise, I turn it over to Jim Preddy just to run through the site plan with you.
Okay, well, why don't we proceed with Mr. Preddy?
Okay. Good evening, Jim Preddy, Criscolo Engineering, 420 East Main Street in Branford. Let's get to the map.
You should be able to share it.
Share the screen. You're seeing the map now?
We are.
Okay, good. Yeah, this is the property at 642 Main Street. As Tim said, it's about 1/3 of an acre. This is the existing house. That's a 2-family house now. There's an existing gravel parking area in the rear, and then there's some lawn area behind that to the back property line. The proposal is to build this building here, which is roughly 34 by 72, 3 1-bedroom apartment units, all 1 floor, with a step in the architecture that kind of blended the grade, and also it was part of the recommendations from the Town Center Board, just to break it up a little bit. We are going to have expanding the parking lot a little bit here, sidewalk across this side into the front, or what will be the front doors of the apartments. The back sides will have sliders with 8 by 10 patios. We had gone back and forth with the town engineer a little bit on the drainage here, and we had it in the rear originally, but we had moved it to under the parking area and added a couple of yard drains in the front here to pick up some of the additional water from the parking expansion. There was a comment also from the fire marshal about the access way over here, and we've made some modifications as much as we could, and he had sent a letter to say that at this point he was satisfied, or an email rather, not a letter. So this is the floor plan of the 3 units. They're all very similar. Living room, kitchen, eating area with a flex space for an office in the rear or a den, and then a bedroom here. These are the elevations. So this is the rear. This is the step I was mentioning. The front. So the town center had some comments on, how we do these overhangs and things, and stepping the building was a big thing for them. So we've made those changes to react to that. We have a landscaping plan that shows, building landscaping on 50%, basically. It's additional tree in the rear and some screening plantings between the patios and the back. And I think that's it. Like as Tim said, it's sounds complicated, but it's a relatively simple project. And we're looking to add a couple of apartment units to this area.
Chuck Cantor, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Pruddy. Anything else, Mr. Lee, at this time?
We don't have anything. Of course, if the commission has questions, we'll do our best to answer them.
Certainly. McKeel, you want to review your staff report?
I will. Let me share my screen. All right. So in the staff report that I sent out for this meeting, quickly have the elevation, which was reviewed by Town Center Review Board. Here's that site plan again, with the red and of the boundary line. The existing house is up front by the street, and the yellow is the new structure. And then in green, I sort of highlighted the landscaping that is to be added. So I reviewed it based on the establishment of the hot zone. There are a number of criteria by which you have to fulfill if it gets placed. And it is, it seeks to locate these where public transportation exists, be concentrated where areas of development such as the town center, which are served by water and sewer. They provide floor plans and renderings of the building, the bulk requirements that dictate the number of units you can achieve. The IHOD zone allows up to 20 units per acre. This is proposing 5 units on the property, which gets it up to 17 units per acre. So they're technically not maxing out the unit counts, but they are maxing out what's feasible on the property given the parking requirements. There's an affordability requirement of 20%, which means 1 unit of the 3 in the back needs to be affordable. And then the design standards, which Town Center Review Board has recommended a favorable review of the design. It meets the bulk requirements, the basic standards for review. Again, these are Section 6 of the zoning code. It is compliant now. That non-compliant, they have the 40% around the building for landscaping. And it adheres to all other aspects at this time. They meet the parking requirements with 7 spaces. The Town Center Review Board made the recommendations of those sort of rear patios, provide some space for the residents, as well as tiering the building. So before it was one long linear building, the applicant has broken up the facade with the gables on one end, and then also broke it up further by stepping down the building along with the slope, which was a part of the process in the design with Town Center Review Board. Main Street Overlay District. So the Main Street Overlay District includes this property. So the blue boundary is the Main Street Overlay. As Attorney Lee mentioned, ground floor residential is technically prohibited. I think the goal there is really that you don't want to have storefronts converted to residential. You want to maintain those retail storefronts. Technically, this property has no retail components. It's all residential, and the proposed units are not Main Street facing. They're to the rear of the property. So at this point, the only way around it, it doesn't make that distinction in the regs. So the only way around it is to take it out of the Main Street overlay zone at this moment. Reviews are required. It was reviewed by the fire marshal. They had initial comments in May about the being able to get vehicles onto the property. After working with the applicant in revisions, they feel all the issues were addressed with their June 5th comment. Town engineer also reviewed it, had issues with originally it was a paved parking lot. and the amount of impervious area was not correctly calculated based on the total impervious coverage now on the property. They looked only at the building itself as opposed to all the new impervious. They've since returned returned to a gravel parking lot concept, and redid their calculations and now have correctly sized the capacity to address that. And that's retainage of stormwater is now under the gravel parking lot and no longer to the rear of the building. Building official had some issues with fire, possibly requiring a sprinkler, but they've since changed their partition walls to be fully compliant, no longer requiring a sprinkler system. Health department had no comments because the public utilities are present on the site. And again, Town Center Review Board, they recommend approval based on the design, the exterior concept. Suggested wrapping the sidewalk around the corner of the building to bring it closer to stalls, and minor suggestions around the trim elements, what they've already incorporated. And no comments from Scrog. But it was sent over a month ago, so 30 days has elapsed. Therefore, staff recommends, this is technically a legislative process, so the commission has to weigh the overall aspects along, whether it's in keeping with the plan of conservation and development, and in the interest of what we want to see for the requirements of zoning. So the Main Street overlay and the placement of the IHOD zone are a legislative process, which are map amendments. Have draft findings here that the commission can use. If you pass these two, then it clears the way for the special exception, which is an administrative process for the commission. So you have to make sure that it complies with our zoning regulations, and determine that there are findings associated with that. Right now, this is an assumption of if we have a favorable finding, then these are the conditions we would like to attach to that any approval. The first one is that all erosion control measures be addressed satisfactorily by the zoning enforcement officer. That the special exception include the comments from the Town Center Review Board, wrapping the sidewalk, as well as addressing the trim elements. Any light fixtures be compliant with our zoning regulations for dark skies. And then prior to any issuance of a certificate of zoning compliance, we need to have the deed restricted unit documentation filed with the town clerk. And it needs to be in a format that is the section of the town planner. Happy to answer any questions at this time.
Chuck Andrews here. Thank you, McKeel. At this time, let's open it up to questions, comments from commission members before we open it up to the public. Commission members, any commission member have any questions or comments before we open up to the public?
I do, Chuck. What?
Sure, Joe.
Yes, Joe Chadwick speaking. Why would this not be considered spot zoning?
Would you like me to answer that question? Or
Certainly. Yep.
well, it's an overlay. So the IHOD zone and the Main Street overlay zone are overlay zones. They are, in essence, you're allowed to put an overlay zone on a specific piece of property. That's the way they're zoned for. So with regard to overlay zones, I guess I'm going to simplify it. I think spot zoning is allowed in those circumstances because that's the purpose of the overlay zone, is to allow zoning standards for a particular property that may be different than what's allowed in the underlying zone. So I think by virtue of the fact it's an overlay zone allows you to zone the property differently than other properties in the immediate vicinity.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Further questions, Joe?
Not right now. Thank you.
Other questions, comments from commission members? I have a couple. Mr. Lee, I don't live that far away, so I did walk by a couple times, take a look at the site, and it looks like it is kind of a long lot. And when I went by, I think there was some activity in the backyard. There was some grilling and maybe some outdoor activity. I think there's a garden out there now. And the way I understand it now is when you put the house there and the parking, there's virtually no, I mean, there's a patio, I guess, but both for the existing house and the new house, there isn't a whole lot of, open area for, I don't know, recreational or maybe a little bit for grills. And that's, we've heard some of the comments from the neighbors to that effect, that it's simply too much. So I'm sort of throwing that out. When I took a look, that was, just to, maybe we'll hear more about that, but maybe you could address that question, or if, what that is, or how that's appropriate or not appropriate. The second one, and it is, and this comes out of the staff report that I think McKeel mentioned at the end of one of the pages, that if this were not approved, then you would consider an 830G application, which I think is absolutely, you're right. And the benefit, well, under an 830G, I'm assuming that it would be the same plan, because I don't think you can put any more units on there with the parking. It's such a tight site. But the difference would be that the affordable unit would be at the 60% level versus the 80%. And that's, so I would like your comments on that as well. So those are two sort of comments that it'd be helpful for me to hear your thoughts about it when I think about this application.
All right, so we'll take them in order. So the first I'll kind of just summarize as a density / use of the property issue. In terms of the 3 new apartment units, when we went to the design review the first time around, they wanted to see some additional outdoor space for the units. So when we went back the second time to design review, we modified the plan to include outdoor patio areas for each of the 3 apartment units. So they will have some outdoor space, and they'll be able to grill and sit and have a sitting area outside. So since the time we were here last, and we did modify the plans to give each of the 3 apartment units their own outdoor space. With regard to the site itself, if you've been there, you can see the back of the property. It is a long property, and in the back of the property, there's some significant vegetation that acts as the buffer between our property and the property in the rear. We are going to preserve that buffer so that that there is a vegetative buffer between our property and the structure behind us. Thirdly, in terms of the location of the property, it is more or less across from the little park across the street. So I do think based on its location, there is access for people to have green space right across the street. And fourthly, one of the benefits of the property, its location, is the proximity to the town green. It's walkable to the town center. And one of the benefits of being walkable to the town center is that it has access to the town green. So I think for these tenants, if they're so motivated, there's plenty of, there's individual space that they have to accommodate their own needs. But if they need to stretch their legs and do even further, there's green space right across the street, and the town green is right up the street as well. So we think based on that there is adequate recreational offerings for these individuals. With regard to the second question, we could file an application under the affordable housing statute. We had discussed that with town staff on various occasions. We decided on this approach at this point in time instead, based on those conversations. But certainly, if this application was not approved, one of the alternatives we would have would be to submit an 8-30G application. I would agree with you that the site is somewhat limited and restrictive in terms of the amount of density we could have at the site. So we have not designed an 8-30G application. My guess is it could be designed in such a way that we could put parking on the first floor and put a second or third story, 2-story residential zone. I think it's a 40-foot zone. So I do think we could get a density above 3 units if we were to do an 8-30G application, but it would require a little bit of design creativity by the architect, and would require probably having some parking garages on the first floor and residential on the second and third floor. We haven't fully vetted that. We've talked about it as a possibility, but it's not something we've designed for. My client prefers the development that we had before you tonight, and that's what we decided to go forward with.
Chuck Candace here. Thank you, Mr. Lee. What about does the existing 2-family, that's what I saw now, presumably the outdoor when I visited was being used by the existing 2-family, and there was a grill or whatever. Is there space for grills in the existing 2-family? I know that there's small patio space for each of the 1-bedrooms, but is there any place for the existing 2-family with that?
Yeah, maybe Jim, if Jim has the plan, he could pull that back up, but there is somewhat of an area behind that.
Yeah, there is Jim Preddy again. There is a concrete patio directly behind the existing house that they could put grills on.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from commission members?
Chuck, Fred Russo.
Fred.
I think Jim Preddy could answer this, or at least clarify it. I know the last time we had a meeting, there was concern by neighbors about the width of the driveway and being able to allow emergency vehicles to get in there. And I know that Mikhail had his staff report, and I seem to think that the width of the fire engine was either the width of the driveway or a little bit less. I'm not exactly sure, but maybe Jim can clarify that point.
Jim Preddy again. I did send the plans to the fire marshal and had a conversation with him about it. There is a wood guardrail alongside the driveway that's going to get removed to the back of the house, and the gravel driveway will get widened somewhat. And it satisfied the fire marshal that he could get emergency vehicles into the yard.
Thank you.
Chuck Candace, Chair. Thanks, Fred. Any other questions, comments from commission members before we open up the public?
Yeah, Chuck, or just real quick, to Joe Chadwick's question about the spot zoning. Since there's a legislative process, I think, it could be a consideration. I just want to make sure that we're using the right tests. Looking at Toronto, Connecticut has a 2-pronged test for spot zoning and requires that the affected area must be too small. And they have 2 in quotes. So I don't know what the measurement of too small is, but they think that's important. And B, that the use must be out of harmony with the comprehensive plan. So there's 2 aspects to it. It's not just size, but also that the intended use would be not in keeping with the plan development.
Chuck Candace, Chair. Thank you, Mikhail. Anything else from commission members, staff? Let's open it up to the public then. Does any member of the public wish to comment? Mikhail?
We have David Cerrito is physically raising his hand. So he can unmute himself. Here, go ahead. Hold on. Let me unmute you then. Oh, wait, no. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yep, you're muted.
Okay, are we good?
Yes, we hear you.
Hi, I'm
All right. So, Mr. Sri, you might want to turn your camera off to help with your bandwidth.
You lost me. Can I speak?
Yeah, now we hear you fine.
Camera? Oh God. Um, okay, how's that? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Hi, my name's David Cerrito. I'm
It's terrible.
18 John Street for about 25 years or so. And several issues with the proposal. There are several issues with the proposal. Is the number one, the fire marshal took a wider space to allow the emergency. How much of a patio can you add? Problematic that we need to make 3 substantial changes and exceptions to the current zoning regulations to push this through. I think I think that it needs to be scaled down substantially. The plan. Did you guys hear any of that?
Chuck Anders here. I lost my internet and now I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize for that. I'm on my phone now. I wasn't here. I don't know how much was heard because I was off part of the time. Perhaps McKeel or
Yeah. Mr. Cerrito, I don't want to paraphrase, but you said the patio space was insufficient, the access and the driveway was insufficient, and then you had a concern that a proposal was too dense, and the fact that it required, I guess, multiple applications, you had an issue with that.
Yes. If you can hear me, I'll try and reiterate briefly. Yeah, I just felt the patio areas were going to be really small and on top of the bordering properties, considering that there's only 11 feet 8 inches away. The building is only that far from the property line, and I felt the turning, even if it could fit through, and I was questioning the adjacent landowners' feelings about taking down the fence and having the fire engine, God forbid, go on his property. And I just feel like the project is too big for the amount of land, and it requires so many changes to the current zoning regulations. 3 changes is quite a bit. I think it's just too much if it requires that amount of changes. That it needs to be scaled down.
Thank you, Mr. Cerrito. Are there other members of the public that wish to comment?
Teresa, you can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I concur with everything Mr. Cerrito says, and Carl Muller, who's been here in the last 2 meetings. My dad and I have the 2 Mediterranean homes for 40 and 30 years. And we are the ones that the fence is right directly in back of the property. Mr. Andres, I appreciate that you walked by and saw this. And I'm not an attorney. I'm not an engineer. I didn't know affordable housing would be there. I guess someone has everything covered with the fire department, though it's such a tight space. I can't imagine if there's snow or ice. The other question is, I mean, when we're talking landscaping, I can't imagine how much landscaping there is, being it's such a tight space width-wise. And I ask all of you on the board and everybody, Mr. Lee, from the engineering company, how would you feel if your home was surrounded by homes, and in their backyard of the Main Street property, you were building what is now approved for a 1-family, I believe, is now a 3-family. And it would look like aesthetically unpleasing is an understatement. It would be like a bullseye in the center of the property, surrounded by everyone's home. And no offense to the young Mr. Sosalos who owns the property, but there's parties all the time there, and I would believe he would have his friends there. And I just can't imagine if, Mr. Lee, you lived there and this was your property that you've lived there for 40 years. My father is in a short-term nursing rehabilitation center right now. He just can't believe the size of this unit that you want structure being built on this property. And when you talk landscaping, I can't imagine what does that entail, landscaping. I mean, so few feet around this large structure, literally like a bullseye, surrounded by everybody's house. And never mind how it would degrade the property value of everything there. And it's approved for low-income housing. It's simply a backyard now that they party in constantly. And I just can't imagine how this would look. I mean, 1 story, 1 unit is fine, but 3 is just too tight, too much. And it's sort of heartbreaking to realize that this is happening. And it seems like there's not much to say, because I don't know if it's all set in stone or what the story is, but it's just would look ridiculous. And I guess he has approval, or he's made adjustments to care for his own property. I don't know how it would be a new structure, but I guess he has to make improvements to his own structure, the 2-family in front of it. And I know on the first meeting there was a Christopher Frione, who happens to be Mr. Sosolo's best friend, and who doesn't even live around there, who would not even see it, because his property is across the street on Main Street, who thought it would be good for the community. I don't know how that would be good for the community, cramping and everything. And all I say is, I ask you all, if that was your property and you were surrounded, the structure would be surrounded, how would you all feel? And other than that, there's nothing much to say.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Ms. Steve Felice.
And I thank you for going there and taking a look at it and seeing it's a tight property. And that's
other members of the public wish to comment? Nikhil, do you see anyone? Nikhil, you're muted, I think.
I'm not seeing any raised hands in the participant window or in the video screens.
Mr. Mueller couldn't make it tonight.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we do have some written correspondence from, we have those. Okay, would the applicant like to address any of the public comments? Mr. Lee, Mr. Preddy.
Sure, I'll take the first crack at it. I appreciate the public comment. I appreciate the concern that there's going to be a development in these individuals' neighborhood. So I understand why they're concerned. It was our goal to try to make this project so that it would have benefits to the town. It does have a component of affordability, which is one of the things that's mentioned in the POCD. It does meet the standards in the IHOD zone to the extent it's on a major road. It has access to bus businesses. The property is also located close to the town center. It's walkable to the town. So for all those reasons, we thought that this property would be an ideal location for a three-bedroom, or pardon me, a three-unit apartment building. And we're hoping to design it in such a way that it does not have an impact in the neighborhood. We are preserving some of the existing vegetation, which acts as a buffer. We are proposing some landscaping as part of this project in terms of the access way. Jim Preddy did get correspondence from the fire marshal, and based on some of the changes we've made, the fire marshal is okay with the drive access. In terms of the density is less than, I know the commission hasn't approved the IHOT zone, but if you were to approve the IHOT zone as part of this application, our density is actually less than what would be allowed in the IHOT zone, and the density could be significantly less than what could be submitted as part of an 8-30G application. So I would hope the commission would balance all those factors. Certainly the concerns from the neighbors are legitimate, but also the need for the affordable housing, the suitability of this project, the proximity of this project to Main Street, to the town green, to bus routes. And when you take all those factors into consideration, I think that this project does have a benefit to the town.
Chuck Hughes here. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Preddy, did you want to address any of the comments? I know it's the fire marshal. There was a landscaping. I don't know if you want to, the buffer, what's staying in the back. Maybe describe that.
Yeah, so Jim Preddy again. Again, the fire marshal, I was back and forth with the fire marshal. He's reviewed the plans. He's satisfied. I think that speaks volumes for itself. The landscaping, we do have a landscape plan. I didn't really understand the question about the landscaping, but there is a pretty detailed landscape plan that was submitted.
Can you show it?
Yeah, I could put it back up. Let's see. Share. I think it's here. So there's significant landscaping along these two sides here, and then we have some separating plantings between the patio units here. Everything's spelled out in the chart here, what's sizes and species and all that stuff. And here's the Chuck, you had asked before about a space for a grill for the front house. There is a concrete patio right here already.
The comment, I think Miss DeFelice lives in the rear. I see the DeFelice name back there. Did you indicate there was an existing, you saying there's some sort of buffer, or what is there now?
Yeah, there is some existing vegetation back here, trees, and there's a tree line back here. That we're going to leave as much as we can. That was one of the reasons why this landscaping plan actually shows where we originally were going to put the stormwater system when we moved it, to try to eliminate as much activity in the back as we could, to try to leave what vegetation is there. Here's the we moved that over to here, and the grading is very minimal near the house. So there's a good section here that we won't have to touch.
How many feet is it? Do you know?
It's about 15 feet here.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What else? Yeah, I mean, I get it. I understand it. It does feel a little, I could understand how somebody, looking from a neighbor might say it would feel dense, but as Mr. Lee said, I mean, we could actually have more units here if we go the other way. And some of the other properties are already quite dense. I mean, this property here right next door, I think, has like 90-something% impervious coverage. We're only at 69%. So we do have, more than 30% of, lawn, landscape, however you want to call it, green space on the site.
Any other comments by the applicant?
Where is he? Where is Mr. Sosalos? 2 times he hasn't been here. There he is.
He can be here, but
And he made a presentation to the commission on the initial night of the meeting.
he did. Now, are there any questions and comments from commission members or staff?
Just one commission or from the staff, just to follow up on Chuck's questioning. You had the silt fence shown on the site plan map all the way up to the property boundary line. So if you do get approved, can you pull that back maybe 10 feet or so?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Jim Preddy again. We just, it's just natural on a site this size. We would try to put it along the property line, but given the changes that we made, we could pull that in much closer. Yeah.
Any other comments from the applicant or commission and staff?
No, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Nothing else from commission and staff? Okay. I think we can close this matter as a public hearing and at least start discussion after we complete our public hearing. So thank you for the applicants. Thank you for the public for your comments. Okay. So that brings us then to item number 4.
Yeah, Chuck, just before, I don't
Yes.
know if we mentioned that the last public hearing was withdrawn, the 200 Damascus. I don't know if anyone wants to speak on that.
Yeah, thank you, McKeel, for mentioning that. If you're here on item number 5, 200 Damascus Road LLC, special exception, creation of the new interior lot, the applicant has withdrawn that application. So we're not going to hear that tonight. So you don't have to stick around. So that item number 5, 200 Damascus Road, special exception for the creation of an interior lot, that application has been withdrawn. I know there was some opposition to that, but that application's been withdrawn. So thank you. I probably should have mentioned that at the beginning so people didn't have to wait, but thank you for mentioning that, McKeel. So with that, then we'll move on to item number 4, which is 5 Beechwood LLC, care of Warren Field, applicant and owner. This is 19-37 Gould Lane, a 3-lot re-subdivision. Is the applicant ready to proceed with that?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Ronald Wasmer. I'm a professional engineer and land surveyor. My office is at 158 Research Drive, Milford, Connecticut. I'm here representing the applicant, Beechwood Partners, LLC, of which Warren Fields is a member, and I believe Warren goes by the name Buddy, is here with us this evening also. I'll give a brief presentation and we can review the plans. If McKeel could share the screen with the plan set, I would appreciate that.
McKeel, you're muted.
Yeah, I'll pull it up.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the music on the town green is auto-muting me.
We can't hear it, the jazz and the green.
Yeah.
That's what we miss by having our zoning meetings on Thursdays.
Yeah. Sorry, let me just get this. Oh.
I guess we could just start with the first page, which is the existing condition survey.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Well, this is the subdivision. That's pretty good.
Okay, we'll stay with the subdivision.
Sure. So again, Ronald Wasmer, for the record, the applicant's proposing 3-lot subdivision, re-subdivision, and the dedication of land as open space to the Branford Land Trust and establishment of a conservation easement over a large portion of the property. The property is approximately 12.5 acres. It's bounded on the north by Gould Lane. It's bounded on the east by a single-family residence and other lands of the Branford Land Trust. It's bounded southerly along the cul-de-sac of Beechwood Road. The parcel fronts on Beechwood Road at the cul-de-sac. It also is bounded southerly by 2 single-family homes, which front on Beechwood Road. And then last, it's bounded by the west by the Branford Railroad. A significant portion of the property is wetlands. There is an existing house at number 39. It's right about in between lots number 1 and 2, and that house is not part of this application. And the plan indicates 3 residential lots, lots 1 and 2, front on Gould Lane. Lot number 1 is approximately 70,000 square feet of gross area, and a portion is wetlands. Lot number 2 is approximately 109,000 square feet. Again, a portion of it is wetlands. And lot number 3 fronts on the cul-de-sac of Beechwood Road. The gross area of lot number 3 is approximately 295,000 square feet. 74,000 square feet of that is uplands, and 220,000 square feet, more or less, is wetlands. Lot number 4 is 64,000 square feet. This lot is intended to be deeded to the Branford Land Trust as open space. It's adjoining other lands that the Branford Land Trust does own. A large conservation easement is proposed over the majority of the wetland area. The conservation easement will be granted to the Branford Land Trust. We can review that conservation easement shortly. If we could flip to the next page, which is on the bottom, it says zoning layout plan, or Z1 perhaps. There you go. So the intent of this plan is to demonstrate conformance with the zoning regulations, in particular setback requirements. The proposed houses indicated on this plan depict feasible and practical locations. Individual plot plans will be submitted for each lot prior to approval by zoning, wetlands, and buildings prior to construction. So again, we have 3 houses indicated on here. They demonstrate that they conform to your setback regulations and their practical locations. We can go to the grading and drainage plan, which is the next one. In regards to grading, the property is gently sloping with some small areas of moderate sloping. In general, all the lots slope towards the wetlands. There is no significant grading required to develop the 3 lots that we propose as residential lots. There are no new roads required or requested. The houses will be served by public water and sewer. There's no septic systems proposed. Storm drainage is provided for each lot, designed to the 100-year storm requirements. These plans have been reviewed by your city engineer as part of the wetland application process. And I don't have his email with me at the moment, but his final email is basically that we had addressed any of his earlier concerns. The next sheet we can briefly touch base on. It's a sedimentation and erosion control plan. This is more or less the intent here is to indicate the erosion control features of the project. In particular, this was important in regards to the proximity of wetlands. This project was brought in front of the Wetland Commission and approved by that commission agency. We do also have there's some miscellaneous site engineering details. I don't know that we need to go through those, but indicates catch basin types for yard drains and galley systems. We have a landscaping plan that was prepared by a landscape architect who's actually also a wetland biologist. His name is Matt Popp, Environmental Land Solutions. Matt was part of the team in our presentation to the Inland Wetland Agency. Last, we can review the conservation easement. This was part of your staff report, so you may have seen it right there on the front page of the staff report. So the area that's highlighted in yellow is what we're proposing as a conservation easement. It would go to the Branford Land Trust. The area that's shaded in green would be proposed as to be granted to the land trust in fee, or in other words, in ownership. And the green hashed line to the east is other lands that the Branford Land Trust currently owns. So that's my presentation in a nutshell. I'll be happy to entertain any questions from the commission or your staff. So at this point, I'll turn it back over to your staff.
Chuck and Chair, thank you, Mr. Wasmer.
Yes.
McKeel, you want to review your staff report?
Sure. So Mr. Wasserman went through in detail of what it is, but just to orient yourself on this map, and I don't know if you can see a little better on this one. There's the three lots. There's lot number 1, lot number 2, which is like a T, lot number 3, which is actually fairly the largest one, but the development area is only on the upland area near Beechwood Road, and then lot 4 is the open space area. So it's a 3-lot subdivision with a lot 4 that's open space. There are also existing open space to the east that's owned by Branford Land Trust, to the north that's owned by the town, and then to the south that's also owned by the Branford Land Trust. So in reviewing this subdivision, the big issue was less about the 3 lots, but more about what the future of this feature, this important natural feature, which is recognized under subdivision regs, is the wetlands, and how to handle that. We can only request up to 10% of the lot area, the subdivision area, as open space, but felt important that this remaining area be protected in some fashion, and proposed a conservation easement that really covered the majority of the wetlands. And then also make sure that that connection, that natural connection, will exist between these existing open space lots. So I think the Branford Land Trust is here and they can speak to that later about their position, but felt that was important in reviewing this, that we try and achieve that. And the applicant so far has been amenable to those suggestions by staff. It meets all the bulk requirements, and the subdivision regulations, I've put comments into how it meets all the requirements under Section 3 of the subdivision regulations. The infrastructure requirements, since it's a subdivision with no real infrastructure requirements, it largely meets those. And then the basic development standards, which right now it's more of a feasibility. They'll have to do site plan reviews for single family homes if the subdivision gets approved. But it looks like it pretty much would be feasible to do so. And then finally, we sent around the department comments. The department engineer responded twice. So the first was just to get the grading to match the details, which they did. And then they signed off on the comments in the beginning of the month. And it went to wetlands and got approval on May 22nd. And the health district, since it's connected to public water and sewer, had no comments. But just a summary of the conservation plan, conservation development, how it views this property. It recognizes that it's has an environmental constraint that's been highlighted as a property with wetlands. Encourages low density. The existing infrastructure is a collector road, which is a little higher than a local road, but there's no proposed changes that would really impact that. And then future land use is the proposed low density. The single family lots on existing infrastructure is essentially allowing for the continued natural development pattern that's occurred in that neighborhood. It really does not increase density based on that natural development pattern. My staff recommendations really go into the wetlands and how to sort of address that. And you see that being addressed through the conservation easement that's been proposed. And the Branford Land Trust would be the recipient of. Findings, if we are looking forward to approve this, I've put together draft findings and what conditions would need to be put in place. They're pretty much our standard conditions, with the exception of adding in the transfer of the open space, and the conservation easements need to be obviously filed with the town clerk. Same thing for lot 2 and lot 3. And those would be the motions that we would look to consider, if you guys want to propose those at the time after the public hearing. Those are my comments.
Chuck Anders, Chair. Thank you, McKeel. Okay, are there any questions or comments from commission members before we want to open it up to the public?
Marcy here. Yeah,
Marcy.
it just seemed like I didn't get to see the landscape plan. You brushed over it, and I would just like to hear a little bit of whether you're using native plantings or doing anything at the edge of the wetlands as far as the conservation easement.
Sure. Akil, if you could go back to that, I think it's the last page of the application. Again, landscape architect Matt Pop from Environmental Land Solutions prepared this plan. I've known Matt for a long time, and in general, I can't speak as a landscape architect, but I know that Matt consistently sticks with native species. This is a residential lot. There's no reason for any exotic stuff. We did propose a significant amount of buffer plantings along the wetland interconnection, or where the develop area gets closest to the wetlands. So you'll see on lot number 1 a significant number of proposed shrubs, small trees. In regards also to protection of wetlands, we have a proposed split rail fence approximately 15 feet away from the wetland limits. That the buffer plantings, or enhancement planting as we call them, would be on the closer to the wetlands. And also along this fence there would be notification markers. These were all presented to the Branford Wetland Agency, and they were happy to see both the plantings as well as the fence and the notification markers. There are a few street trees proposed along Gould Lane. I see 5 of them. Looks like red maples and swamp oak, which would lend itself well to the proximity of the wetlands. And there's also a proposed street tree on Beechwood. Those are 2.5-inch caliper street trees.
That's very interesting. Thank you to see the plant list. Thank you for zooming in. And I'm just curious, and you may not know the answer, but it looks like he's reinforcing the edge of the wood line, the existing wood line, and the survey doesn't really show any. You don't happen to have any survey data on, specifically large trees in the tree line. And I noticed that he stepped away in some places and planted outside of the tree line. I didn't know if there was any methodology for why he did that, but the plant list looks very good.
Thank you. There is some larger trees along the buffers, along the. So let me back up a little bit. The majority of the land that is upland is kind of an overgrown meadow area. It's got small trees, shrubs, bushes. There's obviously a woods line as you approach the wetlands. The plantings will be directed. This was part of our application to the wetland agency. The placement of the plantings will be supervised by the landscape architect, and we can shuffle these around a little bit to avoid having to, we certainly don't want to take down any trees immediately adjacent to the wetlands to plant new trees.
Of course, yeah.
And then, so along lot number 3, there's some, it looks like there's an existing block building pretty much where that proposed house is. And around that, there are some overgrown shrubs. I think that at one point someone was using this as kind of a area to grow shrubs, or plant them temporarily, because the land that we're proposing was owned historically by the person that developed or at least sold off Beechwood Road. And you could see there's kind of a connection of the uplands on lot number 2 with the uplands on lot number 3. And you could tell historically they drove back and through there. And so on lot number 3, you're going to find some large yews and cedar trees, but they're all in the upland areas. So they all seem to be native. And I have a fairly good knowledge about native and invasive species, but I'm not a landscape architect or an arborist, just over the years of doing this. So I don't see a tremendous amount of invasive species on here, nor are we proposing anything. I like to use the term exotic,
Do you know if they require you to clean up any of the invasives that might be taking over the wetland?
I can't remember if there was any conditions on that. There was a couple conditions about removing some debris that's in the kind of the rear of lot number 2. There's some old concrete pipes, some that looks like it was a dog house or something like that, and they're right at the edge of the wetland. So we're going to pull those out. And there is a block building on lot number 3, as well as some debris that will be removed as part of the project.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Dr. Chair, thank you, Marcy. Any other questions, comments from commission members before we open up to the public? Hearing none, then let's go ahead and.
Chuck, Sharon Hutner here.
Sharon.
Yeah, I have a question. Were the landscaping plans sent out as part of our packet?
I believe so.
I personally never got any of the landscaping plans. So
the plans that Nakia was sharing is the plans that we submit.
We definitely received them, but I do not know what was part of your mail out, but I can certainly get them to you.
yeah, I really appreciated getting the landscaping plans, in the past. So it really is very helpful to have them in advance. Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you, Sharon. Any other question, comments from commission members? Then let's go ahead and open up to the public. Any member of the public wish to comment? I see Mr. Horn. Did you wish to speak, Mr. Horn?
Well, I'm happy to speak. I will say that the land trust very much appreciates having the conservation easement put on the wetland. As the applicant pointed out, and also the staff, that this is it's a significant wetland corridor. The land trust protects wetlands both upstream and downstream, and so being able to protect the wetlands on this site is important. Getting a conservation easement as part of a subdivision is a new experience for us. Typically, most of our conservation easements are actually on open space properties that are owned by the town, or in one case, the state. We have some specific responsibilities that go along with conservation easements that we don't necessarily have to follow for properties that are for fee properties that we receive. The main one of which is that we need to develop a baseline conditions report to have on file in case we have to defend the easement. It's very important to know what it was like when we achieved it. So if this is approved, the land trust would need to have access to the property. I think we have people in-house that can do that baseline report. And it's also important both for the easement and for the fee property that the marking is required in the subdivision regs be done relatively quickly after the approval. The land trust has had experiences in the past where things were supposed to be marked and never got around to being marked, and the town didn't have the leverage, and the land trust didn't frankly have the resources to really pursue it too hard. So I would say in the last few years, I can think of two developments where the pins were put in within weeks or a couple of months of when the application was approved. And I believe that in one case, I heard that the pins had to be in before the plan would be signed off on. I don't know if that's actually the practice or not, but we do want to get the pins installed. There's an issue with the fee property, and I don't know about the easement, that at least one of the corners is in an area of standing water. And we've been told quite reasonably that you can't really put a monument or a pin someplace where there's standing water. So we particularly would like to have some sort of a line defined along the back of the two houses that abut the open space on the north, just so that these are people that are not involved in the subdivision, and all of a sudden they've got open space in their backyard. And so I think the planner shared the subdivision plan with the pins put in for marking the conservation easement. I think that between marking the corner of the northwest corner of the parcel and marking an adjacent corner of one of the houses, which is where the easement boundary starts, we should be able to sight along that and figure out what's ours and what's not ours. I just say, looking at the plans as they were shown, I think that the southeast corner where it abuts the land trust property appears to be outside of a wetland area that was marked probably during development of the Beechwood development. And I just asked that the applicant take a look back there and see, or have his engineer surveyor take a look back there and see if it's possible to set a pin on that corner. Other than that, I don't really have any comments. I'm done.
Yeah, I think we might have lost Chuck, or he's frozen.
He's frozen.
I can respond to that if you'd like.
Okay.
Yes.
Please respond. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
My internet.
Ronald Wasmer, agent for the applicant, engineer, land surveyor. So I agree that portions of the conservation easement, as well as lot number 4, are in a wooded wetland with standing water. Surveyors are a rugged crew. If we have to put on waders, we'll go to that location, or mud boots, whatever the need be. I know as a surveyor, a lot of times we think of iron pins, or it's 3/4 inch, 1 inch rebar driven, relatively flush to the ground or sticking out a few inches in the woods in particular locations where it seems like it's in water, we can install something significantly larger, maybe a 4-inch pipe, and leave it sticking out of the ground, 3 or 4 feet. So it makes it easy for the Conservation Commission to see where their land is. A lot of it won't be that inundated, but so that's just what I'm offering to do. We submitted a little bit more detailed plan, but it generally follows along what Mikhail has indicated on his staff report. We just fine-tuned it to the standards of a actual survey with meets and bounds and proposed corners at the location. So I hope that satisfies Mr. Horn's concern about being able to find the property and the easement that we intend on, or that we wish to grant to his trust. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could just
Mr. Horn, any further questions?
Not a comment, not a question. I neglected to say that our practice is once the pins are in, we install channel post with a land trust sign on it. Or in the case of the conservation easement, I think it would be something that's not boldly Branford Land Trust, but would just indicate conservation zone or something, as is stated in the subdivision regulations, that there has to be periodic marking of the edge of an easement as being a conservation area, and the land trust would be doing this. And so once the pins are in, and hopefully there'll be flagged stakes installed at the pins so that when we go out we can find them. Then we'll put in these signs so to indicate what the boundary is to the homeowners, basically. And we'll be looking to develop good cooperative relations with the homeowners. Hopefully we'll be informed when the house is being sold so that we can get contact information and reach out to the owners so that we can start to develop that relationship that we want to have. Thank you.
Thank you. Just checking to sure, Mr. Horn, are any of these walkable over here, or is it mainly just to preserve the resource versus walkable stuff? I don't know if they're trails.
I haven't explored the wetlands directly, but from what I can see from the road on the west side of the property, there's an intermittent stream and what looks like an area that is probably pooled water after a heavy rain for a while. It's not a place that anybody would want to. I mean, somebody who likes to bushwhack and goes bird watching might very well do it, but it's not a place that's conducive to public recreation.
Okay, thank you. And just Mr. Washington, did I understand you correctly saying, even though you agree with Mr. Horn that part of the corner property line is underwater, that you could put a pole in that would be show that corner, and it would be obviously extend above the water line so they could see it?
Yeah, that's correct. Ronald Wasmer, for the record. Yes, that's what I said.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
Are there other members of the public that wish to comment? See a hand raised. Mikhail? Mikhail, you're muted still.
Yeah, there's a Christine that raised her hand.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, my name is Christine Nintu, and we are on Well Sweep Road. We are within 100 feet of the proposed development. And my first question has to do with the infrastructure. Who will be putting in the infrastructure if this development is approved?
I'm not sure what you mean by infrastructure. You mean
well, the water, and
or...
they're connecting to the sewers. I know the Gould has sewers. Who will be doing that?
Okay, Mr. Wasmer, maybe you can address that.
Well, that would be the purchaser of the lot. They would hire a contractor. The contractor would have to obtain the necessary permits from the municipality, and part of that process is permits from the I believe probably Public Works Department, and they also have to get permits from the Inland Wetland Agency. The plans have been approved, but there'll be individual permits granted for each individual lot of the 3 lots.
And will the same builder be putting all 3 homes in?
These lots are going to be sold. So it may be one builder that buys all 3. It might be individual people that then hire a builder to build the house.
So it will not be one builder putting all 3 homes in. Okay.
It could be, it might not.
Right. It might not be. Okay. In terms of the landscaping and the plantings, if it turns out that, or even with one builder, what guarantee does the town have that they're going to follow the drawings and that a homeowner doesn't decide to go rogue and do whatever they want, or maybe decide they'd like a little bit more green space and lawn than what was originally proposed?
So as part of the approval with the wetland agency, the applicant or the person that's going to build the house has to post a bond. The bond is a dollar amount that represents the cost of the landscaping. There's typically a 2-year monitoring period where the landscape architect comes out probably 4 times over the course of 2 years to look to see that the plants have established themselves fairly well. And then, of course, these are all subject to a wetland approval process where if so there'll be notifications, both physical notifications as well as notifications on the land records that these parcels are subject to the wetland approval that was granted by the wetland agency, which outlines what can be built on and what cannot be built on. And if they decide to expand the land, if they decide to move the fence and fill in wetlands, they'll be subject to violation of that permit. And they would have to restore that as directed by the wetland agency to satisfy the wetland agency if they've they call it a violation. So if they violated the permit or the approval, or actually if anybody has land that doesn't have a permit and they fill in wetlands, it's considered a violation. And the municipality has the right to enforce the wetland regulations, whether it's on this lot or any lot in town.
And how many years that they monitor? Is it for 2 years, you stated?
Planting, I believe it was for 2 years. Yeah.
2 years. So after that, there's no one monitoring the properties, and they could do whatever they wanted, correct?
Well, you have a wetland enforcement officer that monitors the properties. And so, and of course you have neighbors. So if someone says, hey, looks like they're building a shed out in the middle of the wetlands, call up the wetland agency, and Jamie Frederick will take a quick look out there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Are there members of the public wish to comment?
Kevin Healy.
Yeah. Who do you see?
Kevin Healy. I'll ask him.
Yes. Hi, good evening. Thank you very much. My name is Kevin Healy. I reside at 3 Patrick Lane here in Branford. I actually was on the call this evening to speak out against 200 Damascus Road that I understand was being withdrawn. Thankfully, they came to their senses. But I was on the phone call for this evening, and I'd just like to take a minute to speak to tonight's current agenda, as well as in the others, to implore the committee to remember the silent majority. The action that I was going to speak about against tonight, I would not have been privy to. I'm not abutted directly to that property, but that property would have affected mine. As well as the current proposal going down Gould Lane, this is going to also eventually affect mine. So there is, again, a silent majority of people who are very frustrated with the overdevelopment of the town. And myself, I used to be an RTM member for 5 years. I'm going to be actually running for the 7th district again. I'm fully aware of the fiscal strength of our town for today and tomorrow. And some of these development plans, whereas they do check the boxes that come before this committee has a lot of power. And they look at what falls within that checked box. And I understand you're not, again, always privy to what's going on outside, but I implore you to think about the people who generally are talking within social media about our town not becoming an East Haven, a Milford, or something as such. We are fulfilling our needs of affordable housing that wouldn't be necessary downtown. But here again, as it speaks to the project before you currently right now, of which I'm only allowed to speak to, when I bought my house 15 years ago, I would barely see a car maybe every half hour coming down Damascus. There's now 1 or 2 cars per minute coming down Damascus, going through the school zone that comes from Gould and Feather Lane. So again, I'm listening to this habitat protectionism, and it's more about the public's aspect, but nobody's speaking about the natural habitat to any of the deer or other of the animals or anything like that. It's just if somebody with waders can walk into the back there. I just wish again that this committee would continue to think about the excessive development that's not fully necessary to fiscally fund all the social programs we are doing currently at this time. And not to just look at the boxes that are being checked. Because that Timothy Lee, he may appreciate people's comments, but he didn't give a damn about what people think of what's going on in the center of town. It's all about greed, which would have been at 200 Damascus Road here. Greed. Please keep that in mind. But thank you very much for your time this evening. I appreciate the committee's time.
Chuck Chair. Thank you, Mr. Healy. Other members of the public wish to comment? Do you see anyone, McKeel?
Yeah, there's a hand raised. Please find it.
Mr. Horn, did you have some follow-up?
Yes, I'd like particularly to respond to Christine's concerns about who's going to be monitoring. The Land Trust will be monitoring both the fee parcel and the conservation easement every year. That's something that as an accredited land trust, we're required to do on all the properties that we protect. So we probably won't be checking the plantings that are near but not actually in the conservation easement, but we will be going around and hopefully we'll have a good relationship with the homeowners and they'll understand the need to protect the area. I did have one thing. I was not aware, the Land Trust was not aware that Mr. Field is not planning on developing the property, but he's going to be selling off the lots either singly or as a approved subdivision. It's particularly important to us that the pins be set before Mr. Field conveys any of the easement or the fee out of his ownership. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. Other public comment? Any other members of the public wish to comment? Hearing none, any further comments from the applicant? Mr. Wasmer?
I have no further comments. Thank you.
Any further questions, comments from commission members or staff? Hearing none, then I think we can close this matter as a public hearing. This will be something that I think we can talk about in a bit. I'm not sure if we'll do the actual vote, but at least we'll bring it back up again. So thank you, Mr. Wasmer.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item was item number 5, which has been withdrawn. That's the 200 Damascus Road, the special exception for an interior lot. That matter has been withdrawn. So with that, I think that completes our public hearing items. So why don't we I again, at least bring up some of the public hearing items to get a sense of where we are, if we may or may not be in position to vote on them. So the first items that we heard tonight, items 1, 2, and 3, were the 642 Main Street. Again, the zoning map amendment to rezone it to IHOD, to remove the property from the Main Street overlay district. So two zoning map amendments, and then a special exception to construct the one floor, the single story building with 3 apartments. So I guess we've got the 5 regular members here. So looks capable of voting. So let's go around and see what we think about the application. Joe Chadwick, any thoughts?
Well, lucky me, I get to start again.
Your name's at the top of my list, Joe. I mean,
that's fine. I'll stick my neck out all the time. It's no secret that I am a fan of density. But honestly, there is something about this scheme that it is probably one of the most tone-deaf things I have seen come across this commission in a very long time. Granted, building design aspects are not necessarily within our purview, but it's a building form more suitable to a rural landscape. It reminds me of agricultural barracks. The disposition of it on the lot, the access to light and air is disturbing. I think the reaction of the fire marshal, yes, we can fit an engine in there, was probably trying to be non-confrontational. It's been probably 12 years since I've had my fire gear put on, but I would really love to have a discussion about fire ground tactics on that particular lot. Once you put cars in the parking lot, you're never going to get an engine back there. If you get an engine back there, you're never going to get it out. And the problem of fire exposure is a whole other matter. I respect the neighbors' criticisms. In many cases, I would not have actually put a whole lot of weight into the neighbors' criticisms, but in this case, there is something cramped about this. There's something ill-suited to this particular construction type in this particular location. I realize there's an awful lot of sort of gilding the lily on. Yes, it's a good piece of lower income housing or moderate income housing, and that's the whole motivating factor for it. But it's just what it does to the overall aspect of the neighborhood and that particular site and the adjacent buildings is just disturbing. As far as the threat for an 830G and increased density, I would love to see them try it, because once you get into an 830G, you're no longer a slab. You're a much higher density. You're not just a frame building on a slab on grade. You're getting into some fairly serious construction. The monitoring and application and certification for an 830G, it's an entirely other world. So, I mean, they may want to try that. I don't know. But from a life safety standpoint, to get engines back, to get a fire protection situation established back there is just, it gives me a headache thinking about that. I don't know how originally this was proposed as a 3-family structure. It's sort of been rediscussed as 3 units. There are distinctions within the building code between which building code would actually apply here, whether it would be the residential code or the full ICC code. And There is an issue on the fire rating of the exterior facade within a certain distance of the lot line. Unfortunately, I've not had a legible site plan to be able to look at and form an opinion on. I don't know whether these have not been provided by the applicant or have just somehow gotten lost in the administrative sauce at the office, but there are a bunch of concerns on just how this thing fits in the site and the fundamental livability issues. I mean, the fact that people were actually arguing about what trim to put on it is disturbing in a certain way. I don't find this is going to be a particularly great place to live. It may be an inexpensive place to live. It may be something that can be sold off as condos pretty quickly. I don't know, but it just there is something about this that just does not fit.
Thanks, Joe. Fred?
Well, I think it's a good plan, except it's in the wrong place. If this was in another location without all of the conditions that we have heard about, I'm very concerned about the width of that driveway. I agree. And a little ice and snow on that thing, you're not going to get a fire engine in there or a vehicle. I think in the end, even though they may have checked all the boxes, I think that it leaves me kind of half-hearted about being in favor of something like this, because in the end, there's very little green there. There's a lot of parking, and I think Joe is absolutely right that when you put this building up and it's operating with the cars, I mean, there's not going to be any real space for anybody. It really doesn't fit the property. It may fit the zoning regs, but it doesn't fit the property. It's really out of character. And to have all the surrounding neighbors not in favor of it, we've done that before, and we've done properties like this before the 830G type applications, if that ever goes that route. But there are conditions that would make you say, I'm all in favor of it. This here is like almost kind of like a threat. Hey, we could do this. I would say I'd rather let them try it if that's what they feel they have to do. But the way it's being presented on that piece of property, location, driveway, close to other neighbors, the project itself is bigger than the original house that's on the property. And it just doesn't seem like a good fit for that particular piece of property. I don't fault the applicant for wanting to do what he wants to do, but I think that's not the property to do it in. I know the land is deep, whatever, but once you set that structure in the backyard there, you've changed the nature of that whole surrounding area of the neighborhood. So I agree strongly with Joe that I don't think I think the applicant has done due diligence to try to meet all the criteria that was presented through the regs, but it just is not a good fit for that piece of property. So I would agree with Joe.
Thanks, Fred. Joe Vayuso?
Yeah, this is a property that's way too dense. Like Fred said, it might fit the criteria there, and the less than 20 units per acre and all that, but the density is just outrageous. They squeezed in 7 parking spaces, and you put 7 cars there. What other space do you have? I mean, then they said they gave them some outdoor space where they could put a grill, and I think it was 8 by 10. It's not even the size of a cell, a jail cell, for Christ's sake. But no, the density is outrageous. The building is huge, takes up practically most of the space of the property, especially when you include the parking. It's just out of character for that area, and I don't appreciate that 830G sort of threat. And like Fred says, go ahead, do what you got to do. If you want to do 830G, try it. Go for it. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm not for this. I can't approve something like this. It's just not in character with the neighborhood, and it's just a gross use of too much property on a small lot like that. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Marcy?
Hey, I might be the dissenting voice, but there's a few things that I think are being overlooked. I think as a realtor, there's such a need with an aging population for ranch style units. We don't have it, we can't find it, and it's a product that we need more and more of. And unfortunately, a ranch unit is going to take up more ground area. I was comforted by the fact that it's 60% coverage, not 90% coverage like some of the neighbors. I drive by there all the time. I can see how built out the neighbors are with the two-story. Yes, the neighbors' architecture is lovely and it's very modern. And, you know, I think the facades can be changed. That should have been direction that came from the Town Center Review Board to do that. But there's, and I don't discount Joe Chadwick's comments, but I think, we talk about the character of the neighborhood. If you're going to stay with the character of the neighborhood and reduce the footprint, you're forcing yourself into a two-story situation, which, whether you remove the overlay zone for the first floor bedroom or not, you're creating a walk-up bedroom scenario, and there's just not enough units like that. I think the best I could see from the site plan is they were respecting the setbacks per the zone. So, it's a distortion that I see constantly. It's hard to tell by the plan how much something's covering the space or not. Is it dense? Maybe somewhat, but it fits the criteria that we set for it. So, and then as far as whether to eliminate the zone or not, that zone was put in after the fact. That's always been a residential area. So to tie their hands with, historically something that's always been a residential area with you can't have first floor bedrooms because it doesn't, it's on Main Street and the building doesn't even front Main Street. I think that's, we've got the cart before the horse kind of thing. But, I think, whether they do an 830G or not, and whether it's complicated or not, the frustration I would see with the 830G would be they would be raising to a 2 or the height limits, even if they stay within the zone, they would be raising the heights. And to me, that the book starts to fill out more often. Whereas if it's one story, I think the consideration was to, slip something back there like a detached garage might feel like. So, it's hard for me to respond to the density question when the neighbors have more density than they do. When we have a need for a ranch style unit, maybe it's that the drawings were just too simple looking. If there were suggestions for finishes or something else that could, create a better facade. I mean, I think those are details that we could amend. I don't know whether that's our purview, but as far as the need for ranches, I can say that there are ranches that are needed. I think everything else can be kind of, that's to me that's the gain of this is that we're getting more ranches for the property, and there's and there's I don't know if it's a cost, but that's the downside of it is that it's going to cover more of the footprint, and so that that's where I see it. So I'm not opposed to it. I think there's a need for ranches, and I think the other overlay zone is just kind of something that the commission at one time thought the development was going one way, and it just didn't end up going that way. And so I don't have an issue of removing that out of the zone because I think we should be reevaluating the zones as it is. So that's kind of my position on it.
Great. Thanks, Marcy. I had some mixed feelings, but I think everyone's made some very good points. The ones that I expressed at during the public hearing is that it does occupy a lot of space. There is no, once there's a nice backyard now, I think it is used, and that's gone. But of course, that's right. You have a right to do that. And but it seems there's no place for like a swing set or something like that. And maybe when it's rental apartments and so forth. So that's a concern. The benefits, I think, are twofold. One is, Marcy, you raised it. They are ranches, and that was highlighted. This is not 2-story; it is 1-story, and that is good. And also there is an affordability element where we get some affordability of it. So those are the things I were weighing. And what I heard the neighbors is they weren't saying you shouldn't put anything, but it should be less. If they put 2 units or something, then maybe that's okay or something. But there's just not a whole lot there with 3. I think people have made very good points. I don't know. Maybe we can talk again and think about it and not vote tonight. There's no reason we have to. We got 65 days after the hearing, and we can think about it. And but let's. Why don't we go around again to see, are there further comments? Now you've had a chance to hear other people's comments, and that's always helpful. So maybe we have open minds. And Nikhil, did you have any thoughts? We should throw you in here too.
Yeah, I think from just the perspective of the application, obviously there's a legislative component. 2 of the 3 sort of applications are legislative. It's really within the purview of the commission to sort of make a value judgment there, and whether or not you want to see that move forward. So that's the placement of the IHOD zone, and then a removal of this property from the Main Street Overlay District. But obviously, if you vote in favor of those 2, then it really comes down to, do they meet the requirements of our regulations? And then there's a more narrower path that you have to consider. So those are as a staffing capacity. I appreciate everyone's comments. I am still learning Branford. I'm still learning sort of what the policy direction the community needs to go into. So I'm more agnostic in terms of that aspect at this point in time. Maybe a year from now, I'll have a different professional opinion, but I can't guide you in that aspect right now.
Thanks, Nikhil. That's wise and prudent. Okay. Any other? You want to go around again, Joe? Any second thoughts? Anything, Joe Chadwick? Anything else you want to mention at this point?
I fully appreciate Marcy's comment on lots getting dragged into a net of regulation when it may not necessarily be appropriate. Lines get drawn sometimes when making planning districts that should not have been dragged into that group, or it's stuff like that happens. Fact of the matter is, it's here, and we've got to deal with it. As far as the need for 1-bed ground level apartments, I guess so, but in referencing it as a product, it takes it out of the realm of, God forbid I use the word architecture, but it takes it out of the realm of what I'd like to think is architecture, and it's a commodity. It's a commodification of stuff that ends up being part of the built environment. And once we go too far down the road of commodification of things in our built environment, then we might as well just all stay home.
Thanks, Joe. Fred, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I would just want to comment. I think Marcy, as Joe agreed, she made some very good points. But one of the things that I heard was that they're a 1-level unit, which is very, very good. But these are not senior housing units. These are units for anybody. So whether if this was for seniors only, I think I would have a different opinion. But the fact that once they're on the market, anybody could rent them. I mean, whether they're affordable or not, but in terms of age. So whether it's a 1-story or 2-story, I think it's almost irrelevant at this point. Secondly, if this commission did not approve this particular application, and the applicant decided to go for a 830G, how high is this building going to be? 40 feet high? Parking underneath? I mean, now it makes it even more out of character, and I think more offensive to the neighborhood in general. I'm not so sure that if I was the applicant, that I would look for that. Not on this particular piece of property. As I said, I don't think it's a bad plan at all. I like the idea. I just think it's on the wrong lot. And so to say that, they're all 1-stories, we shouldn't use that as our criteria. If we were voting on something that was strictly for seniors, I think I'd vote in favor of it. But it's not. It's for anybody. It's an open house. So that the argument about it's a one level, who does it apply to? It doesn't apply to anybody. I mean, someone that's older could still go up a set of stairs. I go up 3 flights of stairs every day to go to bed. And so the fact that it's a 1-story building, 3 units with 1 story, I don't think that's enough of a reason to approve it, because there's no other restrictions on who's going to rent it. It's not for elderly or handicapped. It's for anybody that can afford the rent, whatever the rent happens to be. So I that doesn't sway me in any way. As I said, I think that, we definitely need affordable housing, okay? And I don't know if we will ever get to that point. A few years ago, a real estate agent said, we'll never get to that amount. So what we have to do is not just throw things in because they're going to be affordable housing, but, I think as a commission, our job is to listen to these applicants, listen to the neighbors, and make a value judgment based on the regs, based on the opinions of neighbors, whether they're valid or not valid. That's our job to kind of refine it. And I think that's kind of what we're doing. We're looking at something, and although, as I said, all the boxes may be checked, but it barely checks the boxes in terms of density, barely checks the boxes in terms of greenery, barely checks the boxes with impervious surfaces, barely checks the boxes for the safety factor of getting emergency vehicles in and out. And we have to change other regulations to make this thing fit. It just doesn't, it seems like we have to, Joe mentioned the word about spot zoning. I mean, maybe by definition, it's not exactly like spot zoning, but it sure feels like it's like spot zoning. So I don't see what the urgency is. If this was a case of we're going to put in 30 units or 25 units, it starts to make a difference. Affordable housing for 1 unit, it's not going to change anything for the town one way or the other. So that would be my feeling. If there were different circumstances for its use, as I said, it was for disabled or for elderly, I would feel differently. But the fact that it's open to anybody who could rent it. So, we're just going to make it easier for people who don't need that kind of residence to have it there. And then we've made a lot of people in the neighborhood angry, and for no good reason. So I would still stick to my grounds and say that I would not be in favor of it.
Thanks, Fred. Joe Vayuso?
Yeah, well, my comment was when I first started was the density, and that's where I'm coming from. The density is just too high for me to see. I don't see any serious spaces there for some open space there to have some little more entertainment there, for a little bit bigger places for them to have a little deck unit there or something. But bottom line is, it's the density, not against possibly putting something there. One homeowner, I think, said something about 1 unit. I think a redesign of 1 unit, maybe 2, but definitely not 3, in my opinion. If you get it down to 2 and redesign it, at least it gives you one or 2 less parking spaces that's needed. It gives you a little bit more room to redesign it's not much you can redesign because it's a small lot, but possibly 2 small units might be a good compromise. But the way it is now, it's just too dense. And they're using every square foot of that property for something. But get it down to 1 or 2 units, I think is a good compromise. But more importantly, I think the the neighbors there, I don't think would be too much against that particular plan. So thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Marcy?
You know, I'm a little frustrated with the neighbors because the one neighbor that's leading the charge has got the most density, is got a product that's like form-based zoning, and yet they're, you know, maybe if he had come in with a modern adaptation to the house and built out to the sight lines, you know, 2 stories. I mean, he's got 2 stories. Maybe it would have been received differently, but you know, the product dictates, you know, who comes in real estate. There's a need for it. I hear it all the time. You know, an 8x10 patio in back is a very large patio. It's as big as any deck that gets designed on rentals that we see, and there's still space to the sideline. I've seen houses, I was on a tour today, where the houses, the backyard had less space, you know, on the property line. So there's plenty of examples in town where you've got houses on much smaller lots and much more density. And, you know, let's face it, the downtown is where density is likely to evolve because that's where people want to be, and that's where the demand in is that, and that's where we're, you know, why the train station and the POD zones have been considered, why we're starting to look at the, you know, the form-based housing, you know, form-based zoning concepts. So, you know, I feel like we're just reacting to the neighbors and we're not thinking about where the town needs to go with our zoning as a legislative action. I'd love to hear Mikhail talk a little bit more about the IHOD and whether that's something he sees as a product that's helpful in the future, you know, because it's the applicant's right to address that as a tool to get the density. And if we as a commission should be discussing how our town's going to grow, you know, we need to, you know, this is testing that, you know, love the idea of having ranch houses, ranch possibilities. Does it look, you know, is it efficient construction so that they can save money? Probably, you know, it's a renting situation. You know, they've got to recoup their investment, but it's a product that's very well needed. It's, you know, it passed the town center review board. It's a product that, you know, doesn't face Main Street in an area where maybe at one time we thought that we'd have more downtown businesses coming. And so we tried to plan for that, but that's clearly not the case. You know, that you take the neighbor, I used to go to the chiropractor next door before it was sold, and that business is gone from the first floor. It's all residential. It's all built out to, you know, the side. I doubt that there's, you know, there's no green space there by comparison. And, you know, how do we consider what's the proximities to commuter lines and the train when it's right, it's just down Kirkham Street. It's like completely easy to get to. So I really would question, you know, why are we so critical of this when it's consistent? And, you know, I guess I just lost my train of thought because I'm just a little frustrated by, like I said, the inconsistency in the neighborhood of density versus this, which really isn't as dense as the neighbor. And I think that's what I just can't get past as a reason to deny it. And then, and as far as the IHOD and the general legislative considerations, I really do need some more advice from Mikkel on that, as far as where we might be leading, especially since this is an area of the town where you've got the fourth ward. There's still some vibrant restaurants and things, but there's clearly this sort of middle zone, this Main Street, off Main Street, that hasn't really turned into businesses, that's still very residential. You're in a area that's densely for rentals, and it's the part of town that people want to be in and to rent, and, you know, where young people are coming, but also, you know, the age, you know, I see it. I get it all the time, the aging population, but also not just aging, handicap. You know, these units can be adapted for handicap because they're at grade. So that's just kind of where I'm resting.
Okay. Thanks, Marcy. It sounds some interesting. So it sounds like, I mean, I heard Fred say if this were elderly or maybe handicapped, then I'd be in favor. It's interesting. I asked the 830G question because I think you got to be responsible, and people can have that as an option. I was kind of thinking that they really can't, in order to get more density on there because of the site, they would have to go up, and that's going to and they'd have to put parking underneath. That would just cost a lot of money. My thought was that was not viable, but what they could do is simply file the same application as an 830G. And then frankly, I would think, if they did that, I think we would have to approve it. So, I mean, I was kind of looking at it that way too. And that gives you a little more affordability too, because it's one of the units would be at the 60 versus the 80% level, but otherwise it'd be the same project. Just because I'm from the legal point of view, once it is an 830G and we got to follow the law, and it would be silly to fight it, then we would have that project as an 830G. So in any event, and then he raised the specter of, well, we could put parking underneath and whatever, but that, I don't know how viable that is. But I don't know. I asked that because we should be thinking about it. So, but I think everyone's raised some good points. Marcy, you raised some interesting points too. What do you want to think about it? I mean, I counted maybe, a denial. I saw 3 votes for a denial, just as soon, putting me out of it. Marcy in favor. I had Joe Fred and Joe Vayuso, the two Joes, probably against it. And in terms of future options, the options would be, I would see perhaps maybe 1 or 2 units, something smaller, or I don't know. They can always look at other options as well. But what do you want to try to do something tonight, or do you want to sit on another till the next meeting? I guess that's the question, man.
Could I get a little more clarification on the IHOD and my question around the transportation marine district, as well
Sure.
as what happens if we gamble and deny and they do go 830G? I mean, they'd have every right to come back and double the density, and we'd have no say.
Yeah, no, I'll give
like
you.
that's a gamble,
I'll
anger the
take.
neighborhood or double down, and
Sure.
that's what I'm feeling.
I will give you my take on both those questions, and that's why I asked the 830G. I think on the IHOD question, that is something we adopted back when the state was giving out grant money. I think Shirley may have been our planner then, and when we hired a consultant, we came up with this. We adopted it. There was a specific incentive housing regulation that the state was trying to encourage it, gave out money to do it, and we adopted it. It sat on the books for a while. We had one it was a single site actually up next to the McDonald's. There's a broken down home that we had thought maybe that would be a site for this if you up on North Main Street. And then other than that, we ended up applying it to the site near Jefferson Woods across from McDonald's. That's the only site that we did it. We did that in phases. We did it first phase is sort of a redevelopment, and then there was some additional land. We approved it. So that's got a significant, 200 something units that we have approved under that. And again, that is on West Main Street. It's not downtown. That's the only site that we have applied it to.
Doesn't that seem like spot zoning? I remember Shirley vaguely saying, IHOD for these I mean, to me, that feels like spot zoning for the purpose of what? Affordable?
Yeah. No, I think that Joe Lee's comment is that's how overlay zones kind of work. That they're out there and then you plug them down. But you could make a spot zoning argument, and you could have a separate precedent argument. I mean, even if it's not spot zoning, and I think Nikhil is correct, it's got to be small and inconsistent with the plan of development and so forth. Yeah, the affordability element is I think kind of gets you around it too a lot of ways, because that's the whole reason that we encourage the high density. That's the whole purpose of that, to get more housing and more affordable housing. That's what it
Not
is.
elderly necessarily.
No, it's affordable. You do it because it's a higher density, affordable, and the reason developer wants is the way the developer, as opposed to 830G, is it's the deed restricted units. It's 20% of the units at the 80% unit versus 830G is 30% at a combined lower income level. So in this case, I think it ends up, if you're only building 3 units, it's 1 unit under either one. But the 830 under 830G, it would be reserved for persons at or below the 60% income level, state medium income, versus under IHOD, it could be 80% people at the 80% level of the local income or something like that. I mix
So
those
that
up.
sounds like it's almost like a stepping stone to get more density, satisfy some affordable housing. And if they're forced to do 830G because of the 60%, that the 830G almost incentivizes really spending the extra money because they need to cover the rental base.
Correct. That it's a better deal to come under IHOD, and that was sort of that's the reason you do it. It's a tool to tell someone, don't go 830G, use our IHOD, and because if you go 830G, you may build this massive density that we don't like. But the big, I mean, Joe Chadwick raised the question. He likes density in some cases and so forth. So we're not saying density is bad. And sometimes, I was kind of looking at it as that I think it would be, just because it's a third of an acre, guys, how many units you gonna get? In order to put a whole lot of units there, you'd have to do a lot of building, and it costs a lot of money. You would have to put parking underneath, and who cares about the height? And I think that would be, that would be cost prohibitive. But I don't know. Maybe they could. That's what he said. They're looking at it.
It just seems like a middle ground to, you're getting some density, but you're not getting perhaps as much density as you could with the 830G. So you still have some control as a commission to, minimize the density under it, because it has specific guidelines, which they're not even using the maximum IHOD amount. But
they're pretty close.
I'm less afraid of
I mean,
the
they're like
neighbors
17
because
yeah.
I've seen what they've built than I am of what could happen under the 830G, especially when it's in the downtown, when we may be looking to go form-based zoning at some point anyway, which would effectively, like Joe says, increase density. And I think that would really annoy the neighbors. If we start zoning for that kind of consideration, right?
Okay. No, Marcy, you're making the argument. You're making the argument. If we make them go 830G, it's going to be something worse. So we should. So this isn't that bad because it gives you ranch level and whatever.
Well, it's out of our control.
Me, that is
it's
the
out of our
argument.
Control. That's the part.
Yeah, that
is
an argument. That is a decent argument. I was kind of asking for those reasons. I mean, you could say, what Fred's response was, if they want to go 830G, let them, and maybe they won't. My thought is maybe they just submit the same plan as an 830G, and okay, then they get it. I think, but then, but I don't know. I was asking tweaking kind of questions too, like could you put more, what kind of buffer you have, and making sure that the neighbor's protected, those kind of things. I don't know what you could do. But there's the other question of there's just limited space, the recreational space. You can't put a swing set or whatever that you can't.
You don't put swing sets at rental units ever. And I can tell you 8x10 is considered sufficient space in rentals, because that's the nature of the rental community. It's a more transient kind of thing, and that's how landlords manage the properties. You just don't see big backyards on rentals, or you're paying exorbitantly for them, and this, to me seems like a real entry level product, either for aging people or young young people who are kind of coming and going as if they were in a condo but can't buy a condo. So I just really like the product, and I think it's
Right.
a middle ground with the iHide, especially after what you were elaborate on it relative to the risk of the 830G. And if the neighbor that wasn't driving the charge with the neighborhood wasn't built out to their property lines, I would be on their side. And
Right.
it's the hypocritical neighbor, the nature of, yeah, he built a beautiful structure, but he's got it's all residential and it's all built out to the edge. How did he get through the zoning?
Sure.
That's what I don't really understand.
Okay. Let me ask Joe Chadwick, Fred Russo, or Joe Viuso. Is anything Marcy's saying persuading you to change your mind?
Fred Russo speaking.
Yeah.
Chuck, I would say this. I would be happy to not vote on this tonight. I mean, if we want to vote,
Okay.
I'd vote on it. I'd vote against it, quite honestly. But in respect for the applicant, I would like to see if after the applicant and the attorney has heard what has been discussed here tonight, let them figure out if there's a better way. Maybe there is. I would be willing to go that route. Listen
Okay.
to them one more time and see what they have to say. If they say we can't do it, it doesn't make sense, we got to go 830, then they got to do what they've got to do. I think that.
What would be a better route, Fred?
What do you mean?
I'm not sure what you mean by a better route.
Well, I think the better route might be less units. That might be a better route.
Or deed restrict or to elderly or disabled or something.
Or
something. I mean, if it was, that's what I heard Fred say.
Yes.
But okay,
that's right. Yeah. So I'm willing to give the applicant more time we've got time as a commission. Let's give the applicant more time to kind of digest what we've said tonight. And if he can come up with a better plan than what he's presented, then he's got a chance of getting it passed.
Okay. The problem is we closed the public hearing and they can't submit any new evidence. We can't even communicate with them in theory. But in that said, the applicant still has some options. So maybe we will close the discussion. Applicant can speak with staff
So is Fred kind of suggesting that the applicant withdraw and resubmit something?
No, not necessarily. Maybe modify what he has. I don't know if it's resubmit.
Well, that would be
maybe
resubmitting. It'd be a whole new
condition or
process, no?
something.
Well, maybe the conditions would be.
I don't know.
Or do we
agree to a
put
condition
conditions?
that happens to show up in the report and that he would not object to. But I don't know. But in any event, I like the idea. It's probably good for us to give our own chance to think about it as well. And it's we can talk about it again, because that's the beauty. We got 65 days to decide it, so we can decide it in September if we don't decide at the next meeting. So let's. I think everyone has made some good points, and you can have the option of going to BCTV and watching it again if we want to hear what the points are. So with that, let's move on. We're not going to decide that one. Those three. The other one we had was the 3-lot subdivision. The issue that McKeel, you had a staff resolution, and the takeaway for that one, I thought, was the main thing was that the land trust wanted the monuments before any conveyance of the property. Right. The land trust wanted the monuments and the pins, monuments, whatever you call them, and the applicant's engineer said that even when it's underwater, we can put a pole in there to indicate the pole, and secure that. I think that was the only. I mean, there are a couple of neighbor questions about ensuring what are you doing. Those are more wetlands issues. I think there was the vegetation stuff were more wetlands things and ensuring that. And if someone violates the wetlands, then you have a wetlands enforcement issue. But So
I actually have a question.
Sure.
So because Bill Horn had said something about usually the conservation easement isn't given as part of a subdivision. So I think what I interpreted was, that one lot off the cul-de-sac is bearing the responsibility to maintain the conservation easement to I mean, is that what we're deciding that, or are they likely going to sell the
I'll
lot
give
and
you
donate it what they don't need? I don't know.
what my understanding is this. Traditionally, where there's in the statute, in subdivisions, there's statutes, we can require open space. And we typically do that by a fee interest, by giving land. And we've seen it in open space subdivisions and other ways. And Bill Horn said, and the land trust has accepted as part of subdivisions. The one on Cherry Hill Road, I think the land trust took some open space for that one. Remember that the one, or the old Cosgrove property, I think they ended up taking some open space there, and maybe the water company. So, but it's usually as a fee interest. Typically, our commission, Planning and Zoning Commission, has not gotten involved so much in conservation easements. I think of that more as a wetlands thing. I've seen that more in wetlands commissions require, and because they're typically done to protect wetlands, as is this one. And I don't know, maybe our cultural in Branford, we don't, our wetlands commission doesn't do that so much, but I know other towns do. However, here's the benefit of having new ideas come in. My understanding is McKeel said, why not? I mean, that it's a great chance to protect a resource, and suggested that as an idea. And it makes great sense. The issues in my mind are, do you have someone who's willing to do the work to make sure it's enforced? And you can't think of a better entity than the land trust. And it fits up a lot of ways, because the land trust already owns property. And between the fee interest, the lot giving to the land trust, the other land trust property, and the conservation the land over the conservation easement, then the land trust has can basically ensure that the open space aspect, that the area is not developed, and that they can look at it. And you heard Bill Horn step in response to a question. We look at our properties yearly and so forth. So this is something novel, but I think it is a good thing. There's certainly nothing, and a conservation easement is an interest in land, just like a fee interest. And there's certainly nothing incorrect. I've seen other subdivisions where the open space element has been as a conservation easement, although again, typically I've seen it more in the wetlands context. So this is, I just think this is a good planning aspect. It's something more of a wetlands thing, because the conservation easement is, my understanding, Mikhail, you jump in, is that this is really protecting the wetlands. You're not going to develop it anyway. That's why the developer probably says no problem.
But it's all under the one lot. That's my confusion.
Well, it's not all in one lot, but I would agree with you. Other towns I've worked for was wetlands, had the power to do conservation easements. Our wetlands agency feel like they're not empowered in their regulations to do conservation easements, but it's clearly spelled out in our subdivision regulations that conservation easements are encouraged in these type of scenarios. So, yeah, I was surprised to hear that as well, because it is sort of a standard practice elsewhere.
And we've got a lot of wetlands in this. A lot of the stuff, it may be part of the fee that was given to the land trust when we done fee has included a decent amount of wetlands. So I mean, it just so happens that there's a separate wetlands component where that intersects part of the lots, which is probably a good way to do it. So.
I'm not opposed to the conservation aspect by any means. I'm just trying to understand why the one lot is carrying the burden of the area, and if that lot's sold, I mean, I just am kind of trying to understand the logic of it, and trying to understand what responsibilities that puts on that one property owner versus the other two.
Two things. I mean, the developer could voluntarily do something that's more deeding more land to the land trust. We just can't compel that through the regulations. And this is our only way to do it, is through the conservation easement. He also can't, these lots are going to have wetlands on them, because you're not going to get enough land to create a lot that's conforms to the regulations, but you do have enough upland area to develop the houses. It's feasible. So either way, you're probably going to be in some sort of method that you want to protect the wetlands anyways. They just might be smaller slivers if there was a larger open space component, but that just can't happen in our current regs.
And the upland areas on the lots just visually looks bigger than, say, the two to the east, right above the open space. I mean, that's a fair assessment. So that does the upland area equal what's essentially required for a lot in the zone? I mean, and granted, maybe lot two is sort of a rear lot, sort of a, maybe not, because it looks about the same width as the ones along the street to the east, but,
So what's required is you need to have enough upland area to show feasibility of putting a house. So they can put a house, and they've shown feasibility of how to do
the 100-foot square
septic fields. But again, these are conforming lots under the regulations, and that's sort of where we are.
Did anyone have any other? I mean, good questions, and this is novel, so certainly fair questions, Marcy. Because we don't usually have both conveyance of a fee and conservation easement, but
well, I mean,
it's good.
you have a property owner with 12 acres and 6 of them need to be environmental. It's sort of what's the mechanism, right? And maybe Mikhail's suggesting that there's other ways to address it than conservation easements. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not opposed to it. It just stands out to me that, say I was going to buy on the cul-de-sac, that there'd be all that additional land. And the first thing I would want to know as a buyer would be, what's my responsibility as a steward of the land, to maintain it? And, or because the land trust is going to go in and check their conservation areas once a year, you're effectively giving the landowners them agreed access onto their property because they still own that property, as opposed to it being part of a public domain.
Well, the new owners, when the lots
that's
are
my,
created,
what's that?
when the new owners take ownership of the lot, the land trust is going to have a legal right to access the property. It's not a permission.
I agree. No, I understand.
And it doesn't impose an affirmative obligation on the property owner. It just means they can't do stuff. They can't develop it. They can't dig it. They can't cut. They got to leave it in its natural state. That's basically what it says. Mm-hmm. Which they should be doing anyway, because or they need a wetlands permit if they did otherwise. But yeah, it just ensures that.
But many times, land left in their natural state really should be stewarded as far as removing invasives to promote, native species, things to help it thrive and function. I'm not saying to fill it or do anything like that, but, some disturbance would happen, like to, remove Phragmites or, other invasive species, which I think is important for us to do.
Yeah,
and I would like to.
My take is the best thing we could do is get a good grantee of the easement, that an organization that's going to make sure. I'm sure that their conservation easement form probably gives them the right to remove invasives and to do things like that. And that's I think the best that we could do from our end. Remember, what we're regulating right now is the division of land. We're not talking about building. I mean, that's zoning. This is just the subdivision of property. And I think this is the best way to do it. And we got a very credible and hardworking and
we have great land trusts. Yeah, no,
we did. So yeah.
And apparently the subdivision regulations don't allow them to give them more of the land than what they already are, is what you're talking, than the green area.
They have to voluntarily do that. We can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they can give the whole parcel to the land trust if they want to, but yeah. So, this is the amount that we can require they give away, I think, is 10% or, a fee or.
Right. Fee in lieu. I understand.
Yeah. So anyone else got anything, or should we start talking about the resolution? Now, Mikhail, what I was wondering is you sent us these things. It's just, And you sent a resolution, you drafted a resolution, but you also have separate findings for each lot, but it's really just one application, right? And it's application approving the 3 lots. So we don't need 4 resolutions, right? Or 4 approval. We just need a vote to approve the subdivision with conditions. Those 4 conditions are the same in each one, but I mean, but I think, but didn't you also send out a separate resolution?
Yeah, I'm trying to follow how you guys handle things.
Yeah.
Going off the last.
Because sometimes we have to approve like a special exception for an interior lot. That's a zoning thing.
Mm-hmm.
But this is just and sometimes, it's weird because the zoning, if you look at it, it's involve a creation of an interior lot, which sounds like subdivision. There may be in connection with a subdivision application, but you got to get a zoning approval as a special exception, and it has to be double the acreage or something in order for the lot to conform with zoning as part of the subdivision. So that's what I'm thinking, that the resolution that you did is probably all we need, but maybe include some of these things in the resolution. That's what I was thinking.
Right. So the resolution, which I have here, follows the form that I've seen for your other subdivisions. But we have language about, filing it in the proper form on the town clerk and showing all open space and easements and right-of-ways. We probably need to put in a condition on this resolution that I've highlighted on the other document that speaks to the pins.
Yeah, I think you do. Do you want to? I mean, we don't have to do it tonight, too. Again, we can vote on this in the next meeting. If you want to.
It's up to you if you think it needs to be more thoroughly constructed. Otherwise, I could just copy and paste it and add it in as a condition, a third condition on the resolution.
Okay, and does it say prior to? The issue is when that has to be done. That's the critical. And is that in the condition or prior to the signing of the record? So it could actually be a subpart of 2, right? Prior to the signing of the record plans, because they can't convey the lot until I sign it.
Correct.
So yeah, and that's kind of alluded to, but it's not specific.
You're right.
Right.
Yeah, so this is will be a condition to iron pins or durable markers, which Mr. Wasserman discussed at reasonable points and angles along straight boundaries.
Okay.
I think that gets the intent.
Okay, and B, why don't you add conservation easement, transfer of the open space and conservation easement? Of the other 4 conditions that you listed, does anyone else need to be mentioned, you think? That was the main one I thought too, but I didn't know if there were.
The other ones are really your typical ones that would probably accompany the site plan approval for a single family home lot. So it's erosion control measures.
Right.
And then the lighting requirements we typically do.
Right. Yeah, there's no road in this thing, right?
I mean, no infrastructure.
There's no infrastructure at all. So the erosion control would be whenever they want to build a house, right? Or they'd have to get another wetlands, sounds like, permit and so forth. Yeah, I think those other ones relate to actually building, proposed building. So that was the one. Okay. Is there anything else you think? Or do you think it's all in there now? Once you just.
Yeah, it's a fairly straightforward subdivision with open space and the addition of this conservation easement.
Okay. Did anyone else, am I missing anything? Anyone else pick up anything that that was the main point is I thought was the getting the pins. What are the notes? Yeah, the other questions were like, what if they violate it? Well, there were sort of enforcement issues. So, yeah. They look sort of like standard conditions. Okay. Do you want to run through it? I mean, it's being displayed in front of us and was sent to us in the mail, and we just made an addition. Do you want McKeel to go through it, or is someone comfortable just saying a motion to approve the resolution as amended? It's presently displayed in front of us, and that was previously sent to us. You guys care?
Fred Russo will make that motion.
Okay, looks like I hear it. Motion to approve the application by adopting the resolution drafted by staff as amended. Is it? And Marcy seconds.
Yes.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Joe Chadwick.
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo.
Fred Russo's in favor.
Joe Vayuso.
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
And the chair is also in favor. Okay, so that completes our public hearing items. Going down to continue with our agenda, our new business, we have Mariners Landing is filed an application. They want to modify to delete, to replace the commercial space to 2 residential units. We'll need to schedule that for a public hearing. And that's probably going to be at our next meeting. Is that you think?
July 24th.
July 24th. Okay, so that'll be at our July 24th meeting, and then there's 2 other items that I think will be, there's a cannabis zoning regulation amendment and summer camp special exception. Those are on for our first meeting in September 4th, correct. Which, by the way, I won't be here. So, Fred, here's your warning.
Okay. What meeting is that for, Chuck?
Why were you gonna be gone too?
No, I'll be here. But what meeting? What's that? 24th?
September 4th.
Oh, September 4th.
meeting.
Okay. I'll make a note.
I'm in Alaska.
Okay. I'll make a note.
Yep.
Don't they have TV there? They have computers?
Yeah. I'm gonna tell my wife on her dream vacation. Hey, I gotta run a zoning meeting. You go watch the glacier. Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That'd go over well. I'd be come back alone. Okay.
If you came back at all.
If I came back at all, right. There'd be a bear chomping down
caribou
some
food.
Yeah, right.
Chuck, Fred Russo. I noticed on the agenda here, there's no reading of the minutes or approval of minutes.
Correct. I didn't see, and I don't think they were sent. I didn't get them.
They were. We got minutes.
Oh, they were?
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see it in the packet I got, but maybe they were sent by mail.
They're right here.
Oh, they are?
Wait,
well, maybe I
just... May 15th. It's May 15th, they say. I don't know. Maybe we didn't get minutes.
Yeah,
We'll send it out if there weren't. There were minutes completed.
Okay. Yeah, I don't, they're not on the agenda. I didn't seem to have it in my packet, but maybe just send them out. We'll approve them in the next meeting.
Okay.
So that's it for under. So there are no bit. So we'll do the minutes of the next meeting. So I don't. I seem to have missed it, but I probably just lost it.
Did you see the chat, Chuck?
Yeah. Excuse me.
Did you see the chat? Michelle says you don't approve meeting minutes at a special meeting.
Oh.
Unless you put it on the agenda. Okay. But yeah, well, then we can't approve until September because the next meeting is a special meeting too.
Yeah.
Is that right? I didn't know that's right. I thought the rule was you can't add things to the agenda.
In a special meeting.
But I don't see why not just check that for our next meeting, Michelle.
Yeah, that's what the town clerk's advice.
Okay. That's news to me. Okay, well, they're out there, and we'll approve whenever it's legal to approve them, I guess. Okay, no minutes. Correspondence, anything?
No correspondence.
Okay. Other business, planners report.
So I sent out an email that sort of showed what I'm going to talk about tonight with this map that I'm showing. So this is sort of a work plan. The map here is sort of set an agenda of work over the next year. Largely, it's sort of for me with various meetings where you'll be invited to sort of either decide things or provide guidance throughout that process. So this sort of paint by numbers map that you see here is sort of on the left-hand side. You sort of see in red the sort of the issue areas that need to be investigated, and this is the sort of geographically represents where those type of investigations would take place. So just looking at the numbers, so the first is the coastal management area. There's been a lot of discussion, stakeholders and members of the community that, while we have regulations, it would be good to sort of go a bit further and understand how they're meeting our needs or how they are addressing potential issues into the future and what that might look like. I don't have any sort of understanding of what where we'll go with it, but this is sort of an avenue of inquiry that will need to happen. The third is an open space strategy. We have great partners in the Branford Land Trust. They have an acquisition sort of plan. But as you see, they are really going after sort of specific parcels, but there's more that can be done with other than acquisition. Conservation easements and our land use regulations can provide significant sort of supplementary or other tools that the Branford Land Trust doesn't have. And I really want to sort of create an open space strategy so that we aren't caught off guard with sort of certain developments, or we know how we can sort of protect the important features that developments in the future and put the rules in place that might be prudent or that we execute appropriately at the right time. The fourth is the TOD development around the Branford station. You'll see sort of a larger circle. That's a half-mile radius. That's the dictated sort of policy radius that the state is sort of is encouraging. And while you've done TOD studies in the past, it sort of expands much more beyond what was done on that current study. So it looks further investigation to see what might need to happen there. And the state is starting to put infrastructure dollars behind that radius. So it's probably going to be an important aspect when we start looking at sewers, when we start looking at roads, other infrastructure that might need to happen in that area. It might be able to tap into TOD funding from the state of Connecticut. But in order to do that, you need to then sort of take a look at how your development happens within this radius. So there's a little bit of a give and take that we need to explore there and understand what could be in the benefit in that TOD radius. The fifth is sort of form-based zoning. What I've heard over and over from people is keep Branford Branford. And that sort of says two things to me. One, that not necessarily is a policy, but in order to make it a policy, what does that look like? That really means you want to have good understanding of what you're regulating from what a place looks like, and how does that place sort of function for the people that live there, and that's how you keep Branford Branford. So what I'm looking for is really start to explore what form-based zoning, how that might happen, and I have sort of plotted out 5 areas that I think might be good sort of initial pilots or places to investigate for that. The 6th is sort of infill and redevelopment, sort of following the corridor along Route 1. I think the western portion of Route 1 in Branford probably is looking at more of a redevelopment area. And then when you get to other areas along Route 1, it becomes more of an infill where appropriate. And both of those, you need sort of specific tools under zoning to sort of guide that. You have some of the pieces already put together, but I feel like there needs to be at least some investigation that makes sense. And then the last one is a housing strategy, which we sort of got into tonight. And I've outlined areas mostly north of the coastal management area, but have water and sewer as being areas that we need to figure out what our housing strategy is. And that probably dictates a couple of things. What sort of housing typology do we need to support Branford residents as they sort of also go through the life cycle of the housing types that they need, from starter homes to family style homes to those who would downsize, and then just also can stay in the community as they even or need housing beyond when they downsize. And that's a really different conversation that people sort of need. There needs to be a real understanding of what the housing needs for Branford people is, and sort of is a significant conversation that I think we'll have to undertake. So this is sort of what the work plan from a high level where we're going. You'll notice under items 1 on the left-hand side, so there's a couple of zoning regulation amendments that I think make sense after the zoning survey that I did. One regarding the height definition, the second with grading under 6.8. The third is sort of closing the loop on landscaping amendment that was sort of visited by a working group prior to my joining the town. And then the last two are sort of formalizing what the town planner can do for site plan minor modifications. It's on the books and it's been used a lot. I just want to make sure that that is sort of formalized. So I have clear rules of the road and staff have clear rules of the road. And then also in making more space for the commission to have, flex its planning hat as opposed to a zoning hat. I want to I'm putting forth a zoning regulation amendment to sort of separate what are considered minor site plan reviews that could be approved by staff, not necessarily denied by staff. That's purview with the commission. But I want to sort of show you a regulation that could achieve that. The other two items are bringing OpenGov, our online permitting system, online. That will give you access to all the documents that are in the file and the public as well. So you won't ever be missing anything, and Michelle wouldn't necessarily have to keep mailing stuff out. And then finally, as I'm building the department, as I said, we were bringing on an assistant town planner, and I have a CEO, and Michelle's part of the team. As we sort of build our team, I want to help define from a staffing perspective what's our North Star. What is it that we spend our time on? We can't do everything, so we need to prioritize. And what does that mean here in Branford so that staff can serve the community and make decisions on what our workload is as well. So that's the work plan. I didn't know if there are any questions, any comments. I'm happy to hear them now, or you guys can send them after the meeting. Am I off base on anything, or does this sort of make sense at least from an investigatory sort of outline? Marcia, you're muted.
I have one question. I noticed you've got number 5, form-based zoning at all the intersections. I guess I thought of form-based zoning as more of like a downtown Main Street urban product where you build out to lot lines a little bit more. Is there a different thought for those intersections?
So traditionally it is more, it's definitely around, I have it around the town center. You'll see the green that has that's your more traditional aspect of how you would do that. Those are sort of the high traffic areas that certainly you want to see. You have infrastructure there, you have the traffic counts there that would sort of lend itself to more dense development. It's not necessarily the traditional aspect that you see elsewhere, but if you start looking around, say, I've noticed in New Haven, they have a couple of high traffic corridors where they're really upzoned. That might be a similar approach we could do here, but those are the areas where I really see you have the existing people, the existing traffic flows. Really makes a lot of sense where you have a lot of people going already to sort of investigate where if mixed use can occur and if density can occur.
So you would be encouraging the on-off, the highway type
I'm
traffic
encouraging
there.
right now investigating those areas first.
Yeah.
If they
I guess
lend themselves to that.
I like that idea. I would remove that 1-6 between the center 2-5 and try to
Okay.
minimize, like, I think there's different corridor, a corridor type of zone between the far west and far east side of town than I would between 54 and 55.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think what I'm trying not to do here is make distinctions that to that level yet until we as a commission do that together. I'm just more of like you know,
Yeah, addressing the corridor,
yeah,
addressing the exits. Exactly.
yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so this is so as a work plan. In the email I gave some sort of time frames on when I'm going to start diving into it. But yeah,
Mikhail, I think this looks great. I do have. If you had to give me a 2-sentence for 1B, what would you say the North Star statement is based on your whole month of having worked here?
I mean,
no pressure.
To keep
no pressure,
but yeah, it's going to be a little bit of. I think what Marcy did at the workshop was really, really good. I think what needs to happen is more creating the connections. There's a lot of you need to create places, and we need to create connections, and I think that sort of boils it down to what I think Branford would need. That doesn't really give me the satisfaction of what I'm hoping to do. Like the North Star, I know that I had Middletown was 3 points, and that I knew the community wanted to grow to 65,000 people and have all that development around in the downtown and the surrounding neighborhoods. We wanted to preserve 21% of the landmass and natural habitat or open space or passive recreation. And then we wanted a development process of that you got a decision in 21 days. In Cleveland, my North Star was our 10-year housing plan, which basically said we're going to develop 100,000 units over the next 10 years. 46,000 would preserve housing, 21,000 would be new construction, and 35,000 would be for to help protect people in the housing they're already in. And
how did you come up with 21% for the environment in Middletown?
That's the state goal of preservation of land. So we just said we'd make it easier on ourselves and adopt what the state required, and that gave us a target to get to. And
where do we compare to that state goal?
I'm sure you guys are. I wouldn't be surprised if you're at 21 or more. I mean, you guys have aggressive land.
Well, yeah, that was my sense too. I just wasn't sure if we knew the number.
Okay. Well,
but I think having the open space strategy will start to also help understand like this connectivity issue. Like we have a lot of development here and there. We have a lot of open space here and there. How do we make it all work together as a system?
Great. I didn't want to put you on the spot, but that's helpful. Even the examples you gave are good. The idea of thinking 3 points, X, Y, it's kind of neat. Okay.
Sharon Hutner here. I have a question about number 4 in your email, this RFQ for 2 town days. Can you explain that a little bit more?
So there are 2 properties. We're probably going to release it tomorrow, and with the press release from the, and I can share so it's the old post office, 1111 Main Street. And 11 Cherry Hill Road, so the Canoe Brook, the old senior center. So basically, we're putting together an RFQ. It's a request for qualifications. We want to get teams who we feel comfortable with, that have a vision and the capacity to put those to productive use for the benefit of for our stated purposes for Branford. So, obviously, I have a PFD, I have a document that I can probably share with you tomorrow that once after the press release goes out, and you can take a look at it, and encourage you to share it with potential development teams. So that's, so that is that. And I'm trying to look
Where
at
is the old post office?
Downtown.
Yeah, corner of Montoise and
Board of Ed.
Oh,
Yeah,
the Board of
old
Ed
board.
building. Okay, I just
Yeah,
didn't think of it as a post office. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it was post office, then Board of Ed, then, right?
Yeah, that's a key corner.
Yeah,
Center.
high visibility.
Yeah.
Oh, and then a press release went out today about filling the vacancy. Now, we'll be taking actually letters of interest, and if people want to submit their resume with that, we'll be going through that as a process, so we can select a good candidate to join you on the commission.
And you got an assistant planner hired?
Yep.
Yeah.
So on July 22nd, a new assistant town planner will be joining us. His name is Daniel Robinson. He's currently at Southeastern Council of Governments, and he's a graduate UConn. He's got about 2 years experience professionally, and he's a young planner, so I'm looking forward to bringing him on. He'll be participating with the commission, and along with other staff, I'm looking to have staff sort of participate in meetings so that they can get comfortable in what you guys need and how to be able to respond to more effectively on when they're doing staff reports, that it has it not just meets the basics, but they get an understanding of what you expect to see. And those are the 4 items. So the work plan, the new town planner, the request for a new alternate, and then the RFQ going out. And that's my planner report. Happy to answer any other questions.
No, just Sharon Hutner here again. It just looks really well thought out and well organized, and I'm looking forward to working on it.
Well, I think it's been extra. I've had a lot of people who've reached out and have been helpful, and people who I've talked to have really given me really good insights and feedback. It's really a reflection of Branford. It's not so much of me. So when I get that type of feedback, it makes my job easy.
Excellent.
All right. Well, thank you.
Okay. I guess, and this is a special meeting, so we can't add to the agenda. So if you're done, then I guess, right. The only thing we can do is adjourn. Darn it. Someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll move that we adjourn.
We'll give it to Sharon. Motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Second, Joe Chadwick. All in favor? I guess I'll got to ask the regulars. Joe Chadwick.
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo.
I'm in favor.
Joe Vayuso.
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Marcy.
I'm tempted to wait 2 more minutes so we can have 1 minute go past 10 o'clock, but
Like the old
I guess
days.
I'm in favor.
You're in favor. Sharon, since you made the motion, are you in favor?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Yes, and I'm also in favor.
Putting
So.
me in the
Okay. Okay. So we're adjourned, and see you in a couple of weeks, I guess.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.